Okay, so onwards and upwards. So I thought it would be a while before I got my hands on a broken ZE50 because they all have a 5-year warranty and they came out in 2020 and obviously it's not 2025 yet. But this one's had a little bump at the front, which was in about March this year. A guy put it back together loosely and his wife was driving it around and basically then it's broken down. So if we just have a quick look at the dash, we've got all kinds of stuff. We've got electric motor failure, that was just there we go, and then electric system. And you, once it's happy, if you let it go to sleep and then kind of wake it up, then those errors go away. You can start the car, you can also charge it, but as soon as you're trying to put it into drive or reverse, then it comes up with all the faults and goes back into neutral. It's got fault codes for the motor controller and also for the DC-DC converter. So it'd be interesting to see if sort of how they're interrelated. But yeah, I just thought this was quite interesting. I'll do a sort of diagnostics video. But just, yeah, general look at the vehicle really. So these ZE50s came out from 2020, so they've got slightly different suspension. It's got 5-spoke wheels, slightly beefier suspension because the suspension was a weak point on the Zoes. And for this particular one, yeah, I mean, it's not pretty under here. I'm going to replace this panel. I could do with this part, but that's not particularly easy to get hold of. Might be able to just, you know, improve that a bit. And also this like slam panel has been put back together badly, so they're definitely getting replaced. This panel fortunately clips out from under here. If you take this trim off, and then you can take that section out, you don't have to get a whole new front bumper, which is cool. Yeah, it's been sort of painted not very well. You can also see this, there's a trim missing here, so you shouldn't be able to see through. There's also, you can see the tyre there. There's the front part of the arch liner's missing. So, you know, it's like half a car. Yeah, you can see it's been sprayed by somebody's mate, I suspect. But yeah, one of the redeeming features is that in here, we've got CCS, which in Zoe terms is quite cool because up till, wrong way around, up till 2019, no Zoes have it. So the ZE22, 22 kilowatt hour, and the ZE40, 41 kilowatt hour. You can't get CCS at all, not an option. Then on the 2020 onwards, so the ZE50, you've got a bigger battery again, 52 kilowatt hours, and the option for CCS, and this one has got CCS, so quite a cool car. Yeah, and it's going to be good to get involved. There's a few notable differences. Hopefully you can hear me above the planes in the wind. Under the bonnet, so the earlier Zoes, there was 2 different motor types, but this type is just the 5AQ, the sort of later Renault powertrain. So it's sort of similar, but there's a few tweaks in the ZE50. Notably, the 12-volt battery is actually in a different orientation, so it's normally the other way around, with the terminals facing you. That's the other way around. And also, if you're familiar, we've obviously got this cable here, and that is basically the CCS. Kind of hard to see, but comes out the back of the socket. So here, instead of having one orange cable taking the AC to the sort of onboard charger there, we've got another one hiding under it, a fatter one that goes round there and over there and down the back, and then there's like a DC contactor box, because obviously the battery turns on its main contactors. You don't really want the CCS socket being live with 400 volts as you're driving along, so there's obviously, you need some kind of extra relays to sort of switch the socket off when it's not doing the charging. So yeah, you can kind of see, because this is not in the right position, see that should be back there and then it would look correct, and it's not right there, sort of thing, but that's because that panel's been smashed to bits. So basically, yeah, the interesting thing on this car to see will be, is the fault just random and it's just happened because Zoes can have faults, or is this because of the accident? Did something get squidged? It's been driven around for a few months and not very long since the accident. It was obviously a bit of a bump, but yeah, we'll see. Obviously I need to take this front end off and kind of have a look, and we'll kind of go from there then, really. So, but yeah, an interesting project. Obviously, from next year onwards, ZE50s are going to get out of out of warranty, so there'll be more of these coming along, so it's good to get hands on one. The first one is often an accident damage one because of the warranty, but yeah, quite cool. So start of a new project. All right, cool. Okay, so the Zoe's slightly more stripped down, and we can answer one other question. So one of the things I didn't know was, is this fault a result of the accident that it had, and maybe some wiring had rubbed through and then that subsequently wiggled and caused the issues, or is this just a random, you know, random fault because they're Zoe's and cars have faults and etc. So what I wanted to do was get behind here and check these cables, because there's a loom here, a small loom, and that runs along and then to the other side of the motor, and that's for the rotor position sensor on the motor, so that the motor controller knows the exact position of the motor, because it's a 3-phase motor. So it's got to fire the phases exactly in the right sequence so that the motor then will turn, and obviously if it does it early or late, the motor could go backwards, which would be a problem. So it's got to know exactly the position. So that all looks fine. They do look like that. That's what it's meant to look like. Renault quality. Yeah, so it's not been squidged. I did wonder whether this sort of radiator pack had been pushed. Well, it has been pushed, but yeah, pushed into the wiring, but that seems not to be the case. So yeah, so the plan for this car is we continue to strip it down. This is the first ZE50 I've stripped down, and there are differences, so that's why I'm not doing it in a time lapse, because I need to take my time and refer to documentation and all that kind of thing. I've not done it 10 times like the other ones. So for example, random changes, the washer bottle on a ZE22 and ZE40, so up to 2019, is here in front of the air conditioning, like a catch tank, can't remember what you call it. Yeah, on this one, it's there. They've moved it from there to there. No idea why. But yeah, that obviously doesn't make a big difference when it comes to stripping it down. But we got this CCS here. I mentioned that in a previous video. I can see that a bit better now. So you plug into your Type 2, which is this one. Just for clarity, let's open it. And then if you're doing CCS rapid charging, obviously you're using both of these bits. So this is your DC from your CCS cables, and then this is your AC. So on an earlier Zoe or non-CCS Zoe, you'd obviously only have this top loom, and then this one's an extra one. So when it comes to taking this off, there's some comms. There's a comms plug, and then this is the AC one. So you just clip that off. But because we've got this extra one that goes around there and over there. What it looks like, and I've tried to get the Renault instructions for the powertrain removal for this model, but when we got them, it was the same as the other one. So it didn't have the CCS, you know, no CCS contactor box, all of that's not on there. So it's sort of just a case of proceed with caution, basically, where there's differences. So yeah, there's a contactor box, and I'm 99% sure what I've got to do is get the front under tray off, which is still on there at the moment. So get the car up, get that off. I may move the car a little bit, so it's still got the wheels on and things. But yeah, when that's off, I can undo that cable from its connector on the CCS contactor box, DC charging contactor box, and then that will come out. So on any other Zoe, you would just undo this, unclip the AC charging socket, unclip the comms, which is just down there, and then it'd come off. Obviously, this one's got an extra part on it. So just a little update there. The damage doesn't look too bad now. We've got, you know, just in terms of the original accident. So I'm happy with the parts that I'm sort of getting and ordering. So this is the slam panel that I've got a new one. It's obviously completely cracked here. It was cracked here, and they've squidged it back together at the top, but obviously that's not providing any sort of structural, you know, assistance. That's terrible. Yeah, and it's all in a pretty poor condition, really. So I need to transfer over the horn and the pedestrian sounder, and obviously the bonnet catch as well, to the other one. Yeah, a little bit different here because this is a CCS car, so it's got a bracket here that holds up both sets of cables. So on a non-CCS car, it actually goes underneath. There isn't a bracket here. There's just a tiny little bracket around this one, and that just bolts up. But yeah, on these obviously it's got two, and then there's this extra bracket. So it's kind of cool to see the differences. But yeah, I'm taking my time just to have a look, really, and yeah, look at interesting things and work it all out. Certainly not going to be the last, but you know, it's good. It's good. So yeah, just a little update. So I'm going to continue to strip it down. The radiator pack needs a bit of work. Obviously some cracked parts and things that have moved in the bump. So this clip should be round, and then this will be sort of flush along here and not pushed back. Yeah, and just bits and bobs like that really. But so there you go, a little update of where we are now. I'm going to continue to strip it down. I need to get the stack out. So when we get a little bit further on and it's the same as the old ones, I might do a time lapse. I need to move the car over a little bit as well. But yeah, it's all good fun. So yes, I shall continue. And yeah, basically I need to get the motor out, see if the motor is good, because the motor controller issues could have been caused by the motor itself. So we do some tests on the motor, we decide if we're happy with that or not, or if it's got any issues. If it's got any issues, obviously we repair or replace it. And then I've actually got so this box that wraps around the motor, which contains the charger, motor controller, DC-DC converter, all of that kind of stuff. I have got a replacement one of those basically. So it is VIN locked, so there's a little bit of work to be done there, but that is all doable stuff. So that is the plan basically. Strip it down, work out what it needs, put it back together with good parts, see if we need anything else. I've sent requests for prices for the arch liner front and for this bit, which I don't have because no, I needed those until I got here. So other than that, it's all good, and I will catch you later. All right, cheers. Okay, so a little update on the Zoe. Just on the bodywork side, I've ordered a couple more trim bits just for the bumper, little panels and things. Noticed this wing's actually cracked, so I just need to, yeah, I just need a little repair. I think this bolt's not actually done up properly, but so I need to have a look at that. But chances are we can just sort of strengthen that. Yeah, on the bumper as well. So this is the one that's missing, so I have to order that one. And also this, so on the other side, this fog light, so this one, the connectors are ripped out the back, but it's just like 2 spade connectors, so that's fine. This is not too pretty, so that's all movable. This is not even clipped in. This is so bad. Anyway, so I'll put some plastic body clips in here, so that's fine. Or maybe rivet it because it's got rivets in, but we'll see. Anyway, that'll get repaired. This is all cracked. I'm not leaving that like that. They obviously cable tied it, but they couldn't cable tie it here. So I'm going to fiberglass that on those 2 pieces. So just to give you a little flavour of what that might look like, because we did another bumper over the weekend, just as a sort of favour for someone. So this had a crack all the way along here and around this mounting point. This is from a rather larger vehicle, but yeah, basically just got some fiberglass behind it. Actually super good at first, just to hold it in place, and then built up some layers of fiberglass with the resin and the matting. So basically I'm going to do that on the back of the Zoe bumper, just to make sure that is all nice and solid. So more interestingly, on the sort of mechanical side, we have a PEC, this is called. So if we look on this Zoe, so we've got a motor and a reduction gearbox, and then we've got this box that wraps around the side. So if you look at like that connector, that's that one there, and then we've got the 3 connectors there, and then that's those 3 there. So yeah, so this is the whole control box that goes under the bonnet. So this includes the charger, onboard charger. It includes the DC-DC converter, which charges to a battery, the motor controller, and various sort of capacitors and inductors and bits and bobs. So this is from an R135, so the same model of cars, like the newer one. Yeah, so that is going to get fitted on this car. This is VIN locked, so there's one circuit board which I have to take out of the existing one and swap over. But other than that, I think I'm going to put this whole unit on, because there's fault codes for 2 different parts inside here. So yeah, that's the plan. We do need to do some tests on the motor to see if that's good. But yeah, that's quite cool. So I'm glad we've got that. That's ready to go. Yeah, various bits of trim are kind of arriving, but I'm not too worried about that at the minute, because the next job on this car is to get this, you know, get the wheels to turn, get rid of the fault codes, little bit of fun and games on the diagnostic side. So this car, being a lot newer, some of my diagnostic tools won't talk to some of the ECUs. So it'd be handy if I could get at least one of those updated to make things a little bit easier. The other thing is this car has a secure gateway. So it's a bit of a feature on newer cars. Basically, you can do basic diagnostics on the car, but if you want to do certain functions, so get the car to do something, to run a test or to actuate something, or to sort of do an active function, that's all behind a secure gateway. So your diagnostic tool has to be online and receive an authorization to provide that to the car to unlock that feature. And if you're cynical, you would say manufacturers do that to make them harder to repair. But for whatever reason, you know, it's on there. I don't think it's going to cause too much of an issue, but may just hold things up a little bit. But if you have to get different equipment, you might need to borrow something or whatever. We shouldn't need to do too much in terms of functions, because there's going to be no programming required because of the way we're sort of doing the replacement in terms of retaining the circuit boards which have the VIN, so that the car thinks the components are still the same, whereas we've replaced them. And you only have a problem with that if you're really unlucky and the issue is with the board that holds the VIN, if you see what I mean. So you can have like a control issue where the board that actually controls that component and holds the VIN has failed. But in this case, it really looks like a power electronics failure. So on the sort of big power parts, and hopefully you swap the control board and it comes to life. So yeah, so I thought that might be kind of interesting. So yeah, that's that big chunky one. You can see all those sort of plugs. So that's the output from the DC-DC converter. And these plugs and things, if we look under here, yeah, you see that down there. So that's what we've got. That's one we were checking in a previous video. So yeah, it's kind of looking all good, really. So you can see there, that's on the motor, dated 2020. This one, I'm advised, is from a 2022, so it's certainly ZE50, and it's the right variant. I can tell by looking at the connectors, because the connectors are different. So yeah, so that's a little update, and yeah, we will crack on, and I will keep you updated. All right, cool. Okay, so the bumper's off the Zoe. Apparently this was repaired by a body shop, and not by the owner, but my word, it's not pretty. So this headlight is held in with a wood screw at the top. So there's meant to be 3 mounting points. So there's one there, which is broken, one there, which is broken, which is not surprised, because the bits here are designed to break in an accident, basically. So that's broken, and there's another one here that's broken. So all the mounting points are broken. So they put a wood screw in there, and then there's another wood screw over there, which is screwed into fresh air. So this headlight is just basically completely loose. So that's brilliant. So this bit is part of the bumper, but I have got a new one of those. Fortunately, I'll just put this on so you can kind of see. And that fits. Sorry, it's not easy to do with one hand. It really isn't. Just wait for a second while I fumble around. Yeah. So that kind of fits there, and then that is actually part of the bumper, so I can pop that one out and use that. So that's cool. So that is going to be replaced. This slam panel has been repaired with, like, I don't know what. The guy said they couldn't get a hold of one. Well, hey ho, we've got one. That was 80 quid, that, on eBay. I think I was a little bit lucky, to be fair. And then that was 100 quid from Renault, that part. But yeah, like, this is the bit that's holding the charge port in, which has got a kind of a whole section missing out of it, so we need one of them. That's just fallen out. Sort out. Front half of the arch liner there is missing. I suspect this has been replaced, because that's not original Renault numbers. That's from a breakers kind of thing. Yeah, the most impressive thing, I think, is the bumper. So it's obviously been pushed in and it's cracked the bumper, because you can see it's been badly repaired there. I think I can't decide which is my favourite, whether the overspray and the masking tape that's still there, And also that light, the wiring's been ripped out the back of it. I don't know if that's my favourite or if this is my favourite. Look at that, professional body shop. It's also got a piece missing. There's a plastic bit because there's like fresh air in there. So it's like, oh my word, this is not good. This is really not good. I mean, it's quite poor along, you know, just in general along there, but yeah, and obviously cable tied back together. This is not kind of connected. Yeah, it's not pretty, is it? I mean, that can kind of fix. You know, we can make that a lot better, but I mean, yeah, this was done by Body Shop. Absolutely appalling. I mean, yeah, you can even see overspray on there. Just absolutely atrocious. Atrocious, yeah, but that's impressive. Anyway, so I haven't actually got down to what the fault is yet. I'm just still making a list of things that need to be done on this car, but I mean, it looked nice in the photos and in the video, you know, the guy showed me, his wife was driving around it with his kids in, but I mean, it's got the headlights loose. Actually, I think my favourite bit is this. So this headlight, this one has broken, so they've gunged that back together. That one, yep, super gunge, fantastic. This one they've super gunged and not even bother putting a bolt in it. It's not, you know, it's just insane. It's just insane. And I've messaged the guy who got it repaired at the body shop, and he's going to take it up with him because this is just not good. I mean, there's little bits and bobs though, like this, there's a ducting here to get the air in, and there's a little crack in there and stuff, but little bits and bobs is fine. But I mean, that's appalling. You know, that's just absolutely appalling. This is just, yeah, this is lazy. So yeah, I guess I don't do body repairs because I find it a pain. I'm no good at painting. It's not my forte. I do diagnostics and electrical stuff, you know, drivetrain repairs. But yeah, I mean, there's no way I could let this go back out when it's fixed in this condition. I'm not putting it back together like that. So I've got those bits. I thought that was it, but no. It needs one of those, the front arch liner. It needs one of these. Obviously, this is going to be replaced. That headlight, something has to be done with that because that's just appalling. Other one, yeah, okay, it's gunged back together, but that's got to be sorted out. That really needs a replacement headlight. It's just cheap and nasty and unsafe, I think, actually, I would go for as far as to say. So yeah, I guess if you buy a car that's in accident repaired, it looked all nice, you know, nice in the pictures. Up close, you could see the paint wasn't perfect on the front, a little bit flat on the front bumper, but yeah, this is bad. But yeah, this is bad. So, oh well, a few more things to do. It's all good. All right, catch you later. Okay, so what have I been doing? Well, this kind of explains it. So it's been a little while since I've updated on the ZE50. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Partly because the weather has been totally awful, which hasn't helped. And I've just been busy with other repairs and bits and bobs, visiting garages and things. But yeah, due to the weather, and obviously as I mainly work outside, that's delayed things. Hence, I now basically have this pop-up garage. So I've been putting that up. The car has had a couple of basic things done on it, but no vast amount. Basically when the weather's poor, because I was working outside, things like this scuttle panel is still there. Normally one of the first things you do is take that off. But I'm always wary of rain basically ending up in the footwells. So, you know, historically left that in. Weather's been poor quite a bit. And I tend to work on these cars kind of a bit as and when. So yeah, so not a lot's been done on it. I drained the oil, reduction gear oil and the coolant out of it. But it pretty much is as last video. Yeah, now we can crack on because I have a nice pop-up workshop. If I pop round the other way, so it's big enough to get the car in. I've got space either side, a bit less space the other side, but that's because I literally built this around the car, so it wasn't here to put it in the middle. But at the front, I've basically just set up the lights and dumped my tools in here. But yeah, I've got plenty of room to get stacks out and things, and it can be pouring outside, just so that I can basically crack on, even if it's dark. I've got a couple of lights set up. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to up until right now. A little bit of an update on diagnostics. So I mentioned before that my main diagnostic tools, the Autels, they've not been updated very recently, and so they can't communicate with the motor controller, what's called the PEB, on the ZE50. And I thought, a tool I used to use, it's got lifetime software updates. So I really rate this iCarsoft stuff, and I use these quite a bit on different cars. You can see that's the RT version 1, and these have lifetime software updates. So I thought, oh, I wonder if that can talk to it, but this is quite a basic machine. And I did a software update, and it still can't communicate with basically nearly, so it can only find like one ECU on this car, probably because of the secure gateway. But I've contacted their support, and they've come back to me asking for logs and things, and they're usually quite responsive about updates. So it'd be interesting to see whether I can get a sort of the basic cheap tool to actually talk to this ZE50, which would be quite cool. Whether that will be possible, because I think there are sort of physical differences in how the CAN gateways work, so the tool might actually need to operate in a different way physically, i.e. different wires in the OBD socket. But yeah, so that's the update. Basically now I can crack on, because the way I have to do these cars sometimes when I'm busy is I just have an hour or so, and I just come out and work on them. But obviously when the weather's poor or light's bad or whatever, that's kind of, you know, kind of difficult. Whereas now I can obviously come in, put the lights on, my tools are here, I don't have to get everything out, you know, cover up the car, whatever. So yeah, so it's been a bit difficult previously, but yeah, got fed up, and I've got this pop-up garage, which is quite cool. So yeah, we are gonna crack on. So let's do it. Let's fix this car. Okay, so next step, so radiator pack's off, obviously wheels are off, arch liners, well, that front arch liner was missing, so that arch liner's off. So now we can kind of see what we're going to do. 12-volt battery's still on there at the moment, just because I'm just giving it a little bit of a charge, because it's got a little bit low. So this is the motor stack. So we've basically got the motor here, then there's a reduction gear and differential, it's about 10-to-1 reduction, and then a diff to send the power to both wheels. There's a drive shaft out there and drive shaft out there behind the stack. Yeah, so motor here, and then this is the kind of control box. So charger, which the charger involves a few components on this. There's like an input filter that checks the voltages and current and earth resistance and stuff like that, which is that section there under my 12-volt battery charger. And then there's a charging rectifier that actually does the AC to DC in there, and there's a motor controller, a DC-DC converter to charge 12-volt battery. So all of that gear is in there basically. So the way Renault designed this is you've got to take this end cover panel off. So this big box has a nice rectangular cover panel. You can kind of just about see, you can see these bolts around here, and going down there. Shall we go around this side and have a look? You can, oh yeah, you can see, so this panel, so in here is where we've got to go. The actual component is literally just in here, but you can't get that cover panel off because the whole lot is up against the subframe here. So the wire's in the way, so there's not enough room to get that off, because see, that's sort of that's a deep cover, and there are components that stick out into there. So you've got to take this whole stack out to be able to get in there, and I believe the issue is with the motor controller. So we are going to swap the motor controller, or yeah, I think we're going to swap the whole box, to be honest. But we've got to get around the coding, so we've got to take a circuit board out of there and put it in the other one and put that box on there. But either way, yeah, we've got to get this whole stack out. And you can see this is quite a bit of work. That engine bay is going to kind of be empty by the time we've got that out. Yeah, 12-volt battery out. Don't think there's too much else, bit of cabling. So yeah, radiator pack is out, so that's there. Yeah, so we're going to get that out and see if there's anything visible inside. More than likely not. And then swap the circuit board that's coded, replace that box with the replacement one we've got, and then put it back together and see what happens. So yeah, you can fortunately start the car, and if it starts and it will spin the wheels, you can do that whilst it's kind of in this stage. Obviously there's no wheels, but spin the discs without having everything connected, which makes things a lot easier, because there's obviously about 3 to 4 hours to get to this point. Yeah, probably 3 hours. So this is a big loom here, and that is for, I'll just put that in there so we can see it. So loom there that wraps around in front of the radiator pack, and that's for sort of sensors and like these aircon sensors, and the brake fluid level, and then these aircon valves and things. So yeah, sort of temperature sensors and valves and things like that. So that's, you don't need that for it to run. You'll have a few warnings, but it will work. So generally the way I do it is to yeah, get it back in, put the drive shafts in so that you can use the brakes and things, because you've got to be able to sort of stop it once it starts going, ideally. Yeah, and then put it into drive, and just make sure it works basically, obviously fairly quickly because you've got no cooling, but that's what I regularly do, and that doesn't cause any issues. Yeah, just to make sure that it turns on and spins basically, so it's all good. All right, catch you later. Well, my word, this car likes to put up a fight, but this is out, so yeah, this is what it looks like. What a mess. Okay, cool. So the stack is out. This is my replacement box. So the fault codes are coming from the motor controller in there. We don't know if the motor has a fault, if the controller has a fault. And this is a 2020 car. So I've got this, what Renault call the PEC, from a 2022 car. And I am planning to fit that whole box because we've got fault codes from a couple of different things inside there. They may be related, but that's probably going to be the easiest way to go. And this is the first time I've done this work on this variant, obviously because they're all under warranty as mentioned. So yeah, we need to get this box off. We need to kind of do some tests on the motor to determine if that's good or not, and swap this box over. These are coded to the car, so you can't just stick it on. So we've got that to resolve as well. Yeah, we've got to swap them over fundamentally, test the motor, see if that's any good, if we've got any issues there, because that could have caused the issues inside the control box. And then get it refitted, get all that wiring back on, and then basically see if it will spin the motor, because it will not do at the moment. It will not drive. You just get electric motor failure. But the faults are coming from the motor controller. So yeah, I'm going to do that, and then we'll see what happens next. All right, cool. Cheers. Okay, well this is really not what I wanted to see. So just undoing this cover panel on the control box, and there's coolant dripping out the bottom of it, which there shouldn't be coolant in there. But the lowest component is the motor controller. I mean, the coolant obviously does come out of here. So that's been going down, but it, you know, there's been a bit dripping out of there, but it certainly shouldn't end up in here. So there's significant amounts of coolant coming out of there. So I'm gonna get this cover panel off and see what's going on, but that is, yeah, not ideal in any stretch of the imagination. Okay, yes, that could change things. Right, let's see. Okay, so I think we can answer the question of what actually broke this car. And it looks like it is likely to be a result of the accident. It's hard to 100% confirm, but basically, yeah, so there was coolant collecting. So this is like the cover panel for the motor wires on the bottom of this side box of the motor stack, bottom of what Renault call the PEC. And you can see there's been coolant collecting in here. I wondered whether, because of the coolant that's been dripping out here, because I didn't cover that, whether that's just been dripping down and then a bit's just kind of collected underneath it. But no, that's significantly inside, isn't it? It's kind of congealed in there, you know, so that's been in there for a while. And then if we can actually see the motor wires, apologies, this is, yeah, not light down here is not ideal, but they actually had drips of coolant on those motor wires, which is obviously not ideal. The good thing is there's not a significant amount of coolant. It doesn't look like it's gone into the motor, because that would cause us a whole world of pain. Well, basically we have to get another motor if we can't dry it out, or it could have corroded it, that kind of thing. So just more work. It's not significantly damp kind of in here at the bottom, but yeah, this is the unit that's giving the fault codes, and that's the one that's got quite a bit of coolant around it. So presumably the coolant is coming from behind. So there's a water cooling jacket. You can see the in and out pipes on the side there, so it's all on that side, and yeah, it's sort of there and then around that side, and that's right where this component is. So yeah, it's really condensated in here. Don't know whether you can fully see that, it's kind of difficult, but yeah, there's a lot of condensation, as you'd imagine. Yeah, very damp in there. So yeah, so I think we know that's what's killed it. So coolant, so this is a water-cooled control box. It has a water cooling layer on the case, and then there are components. So like you can see, there's a coolant pipe here, and then there's a kind of layer here, and so that you know, the coolant runs in this layer to cool the components. So there's a couple of different components that are cooled, and coolant for whatever reason has ended up inside this control box, and the lowest component is this motor controller, and that's obviously connected to the motor, and that's the one that's got the internal fault. So not massively surprising, I suppose, if it gets coolant on it. So not tons and tons, but enough. So my plan was to swap this whole box. I'm obviously definitely going to do that now. I know it's not had a lot leaking inside because it still had a significant amount of coolant in it. So one way or another, coolant has dripped in. So actually, if we get the end cover, so this is the cover panel, and it's aluminium, and you can see this has got, yeah, aluminium snow, and yeah, it's had condensation in it. Yeah, you can see the kind of crystallized, I don't know if that comes out too well. Oh, there we go, crystallized blobs of coolant. I mean, that shouldn't look like that. That should just be kind of bare metal inside. Yeah, so that's what killed it. Interesting. So it's obviously had a front end bump, so I reckon it's quite likely that that's actually damaged the coolant jacket, just the bump impact. It's hard to say because it's all under warranty, so we don't see a lot of these. Maybe they suffer with coolant, but I've never seen coolant leak inside one of these, and obviously this has had an accident. This is a different variant, but I don't think this box has changed, and the overall architecture of this power electronics hasn't changed. Some of these components have been upgraded, but internally there's no external sort of you know, no architectural changes on this box, so it's unlikely that they've caused a drip coolant leak. There would probably be bulletins and that kind of thing. So yeah, interesting. So we're kind of hoping that there's not too much damage really, but yeah, we're going to swap this box. We are going to need some components because we've got to get around the fact that it's coded, so we're kind of hoping we've not got too many crusty circuit boards in here. But yeah, we can only carry on and see. And this is quite fascinating actually. There's some differences in the buzz bars here and how these are put together. Some of this is in a different orientation. On earlier ones, the connectors are for these are for further, they're lower down, and then these buzz bars are different, which is quite cool. But yeah, interesting. Right, well, I'll crack on and we'll see where we get to, but at least we know what killed it, and I think that's likely caused by the accident. Okay, catch you in a bit. Okay, so the control box is off the motor. You can see that there's water here. I don't think that's gone into the motor. I'm going to get this off and just double check that. What I really want to do is spin this motor as well, just to see what it sounds like, because you can have issues caused by the motor, but highly likely the motor isn't the cause, so just be nice to hear it spin before we go too much further. But yeah, I'll do some tests on here just to make sure that there's not an issue of coolant actually going inside. So we can do a high voltage insulation test just between these cables and the case, just to verify and take this shroud off as well, just to make sure it's dry inside. And you can see sort of in there coolant dripping off the bottom of the motor controller, which isn't ideal. So I haven't yet worked out exactly where that's coming from. Seems to be dry in there. Yeah, can't see anything in there. But yeah, given that this is the unit that's reporting the issues, that's not massively surprising. Oh, there's a little drip there, isn't there? Yeah, interesting. Little drip inside there. Just noticed that. Can't get that to focus, but anyway, you can hopefully see it. Yeah, drip down in there. There we go. Yes, that's interesting. So obviously that, it tells you the height of where it's coming from. Can't see anything in there. That's just dust on the top of there. Can't see anything in there. Interesting, this is all where the water cooling side is. So, yeah, hard to see down there. But yeah, so I'm going to strip this down just because it's fascinating to see. Plus I obviously need
to resolve the coding issue. But yeah, interesting. So we can see all that, and I'm hoping I'm going to be able to salvage enough of the parts that I need to swap the coding over to that box. But yeah, that is a 2022 and this is a 2020. They're the same variant, R135, but there can be compatibility issues even when you transfer the coding over, because parts do get updated over time. So we'll see what the part numbers on those are, but it's kind of going to be a case of putting it together and seeing what happens, because we've not done this before. But yeah, so that is interesting. So the water is obviously coming from above that point, but yeah, we need to get some of these out and see exactly what's happened. But yeah, possibly like a crack or something's moved from the bump. But yeah, okay, I'll strip this down. Right, I've got this stripped out. So the good news, let's put some light on, is that the moisture was just on the outside, so there's kind of a rubber seal in the middle of this plastic guard, and the moisture was just on the outside. Doesn't look like it's gone inside the motor, which is fantastic. So now if we get, this is the motor controller, so you can see it's covered in coolant. You can see the coolant has been dripping down the side. That's an inductor dripping down the side of there. Obviously this is all coolant that shouldn't be in here. There's some little bit to the left there, and it gets up as high as here. This is where the motor controller sits, and then there was a capacitor on top of it. So yeah, there's coolant all over there, and this is the, well, one of the units that's reporting, kind of most significant unit that's reporting failures on this car. And it's a non-drive, and that's the motor controller, so that all kind of makes sense. So the question is, where is this coolant coming from? And that is quite hard to work out. So we've got water cooling here and there, so sort of the whole of this back part and that side is all water cooled, but I can't see, I mean, yeah, let me know if you can see a crack or something. But yeah, can't see anything to show where it's actually coming in. I mean, I'm glad I've got a whole nother box, because obviously we're not going to reuse this one. And so the fascinating thing is, if we can't find a crack, then is this just a failure of this box, that it's weeping somewhere? It just seems such a coincidence. This is a 2020 car. It had a bump in March, and it broke down about 3 months later. So it's been on the road for sort of, 2.5 to 3 years, and then it's had this fault within a few months of the accident. Seems a little bit of a coincidence. Yeah, so I mean, if we look up the top, so, and I've not tipped this box up sort of purposely, so the coolant's only going to have been going downwards. I've just leaned it back to make things easier. So there's no coolant up here, so it's not coming from that high. So yeah, it's not significantly around there. Actually, there is a little bit just there, isn't there, where that hole is. And that is, I mean, that is into the water cooling layer. Yeah, can't see any in there. So yeah, what I am going to do is I'll take this box, I'll have another good look at it, see if I can see any cracks or anything, but there's nothing significant. I'll take this to a guy who's got sort of aircon pressure test equipment, and I'll get him to put it under pressure, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, just to prove this out. But as it stands, we've definitely found the fault. That motor controller's full of water. This coolant should definitely not be inside here, so that is the fault. Yeah, I will double check to see exactly where that's coming from, because that would be really interesting to know whether it's from the accident or whether this box is just weeping somewhere, maybe like in the bottom of that hole or something like that. Whether that's from the accident or not. Yeah, it's not cracked around there. But yeah, interesting. Okay, so that wasn't what I expected to find, but that's what it is. That's why we do these things. So yeah, I need to get this a couple of bits transferred over into there, so that the car will see the correct VIN, so that it thinks it's got the same components, and the coding will be happy, immobiliser, all that kind of stuff. get this back together. I want to do some further tests on this motor to be sure we're happy with that, but obviously that's just kind of to double check while I'm here. We obviously know that that's the fault. But yeah, interesting, never seen that before. Yeah, so yeah, I need to get this transferred over and get it back together. And yeah, so next video should be with the car with the motor actually spinning, which will be nice. But obviously we've got to overcome some things before we get to that point, but we are getting somewhere. Cool, we've found the fault. All right, cheers, catch you later. Okay, we are fully disassembled, so the only way is up from here. So I've kind of just been checking the motor to see what state that's in, because while we're here it's worth that little bit of time. So if we start at the back, so the motor has brushes. It's not a brushed motor, okay? It's not a DC motor. It is an AC 3-phase motor. So the 3 orange wires fire the motor. So why has it got brushes? So it's got slip rings on the rotor, and it's got a wound rotor. So it doesn't contain any magnets, but there's a coil, coils round the rotor. Probably see them better this way. So there you go, and if we spin it, and let's see in there, it's focusing on the stator at the moment, but yeah, so you see the rotor is wound and the stator on the outside is wound as well. So there's no magnets, but you obviously need magnetism against magnetism kind of thing. So it applies power to the rotor in the middle, just to kind of, so that they are magnets. And then it applies power to the stator in terms of getting the car to move as it wants. So yeah, but just generally checking over the motor, the brushes look okay, but you can't, this is the only time you can change them. The car's done 31,000, so that is getting a new Renault brush kit. So I'm going to put that on. So this is the old one. They're not too bad, but yeah, I'm going to put a new one on anyway. Because you can only literally do it when it's like this, because this box basically covers this side of the motor. So and I wanted to take the reduction gear off to listen to the motor and see what it's like down here, so you can get quite a lot of corrosion down here. So this gap at the top that I covered up with cardboard is the air cooling. So the ducting goes down there, pushes down, pushes through the motor, through either through the middle or through the cooling holes around the edge there, and then it exhausts out the back out there, and then there's a duct that goes downwards. So yeah, I wanted to spin it, and yeah, absolutely silent, so that's perfect. You do get a little bit of noise from the brushes, obviously a little bit of drag, but yeah, just wanted to check it, make sure it's all good, and it's absolutely fine. So that's 30k. It's quite fascinating actually. There's these little drill holes in the rotor. They obviously balance it a bit like you balance your tyres, but they obviously don't drill holes in your rims. They put stick-on weights, but with these rotors to balance them, they obviously drill little bits out, because the winding, when the machine winds all those windings around, it's not perfect, nothing's absolutely perfect. So yeah, they obviously drill little holes to balance it, so that yeah, it's totally balanced. It doesn't wobble or anything. And I mean, to be fair, this spins up to sort of 12,000 RPM, so you really don't want, yeah, it spins 10 times faster than wheel speed, because there's a 10-to-1 reduction in that reduction gear. So yeah, you really don't want it being out of balance. So yeah, motor seems good, so that's fantastic. So I can put that reduction gear back on, get those brushes fitted, make sure that's all good, and then next job is to do the transfer. So to get this PEC, so the box that wraps around the control box, charger and everything, get that prepped and ready to go, and rebuild this stack and put it back in the car. So yeah, next thing I'm going to do is just put that reduction gear back on, sort out the brushes, do that prepping of that box and get that on, and build myself a stack ready to go back in this car. All right, cool, cheers. Okay, so next step is complete. So I've built this PEC for the car, basically retaining as little as possible from the original one, because it's already condensated, and with all the coolant in this sort of lower layer, So yeah, as much as possible is from the new PEC. Fortunately, the part numbers are all the same and version numbers and everything, which is fantastic. So really, really good. So that gives us confidence, because I've never done this swap on this variant before. You can have obviously VIN coding issues. Well, you will have VIN coding issues. But you can also have compatibility issues as well. And Renault would just basically get a new one of these, 4,000-ish, and stick it on and code it. So they wouldn't, you know, kind of, they wouldn't do it this way. But obviously, that's a ridiculous amount of money, in my opinion. And it's quite wasteful, and these parts are available. We just got to make them work on the car they're going onto. So yeah, this is all prepped and ready. Everything's double checked. Everything's back in place. I've checked it against all the pictures I took when I took it apart, because this is a little bit different from the original one. So yeah, lots of stripping down, but all of these have to be back. Otherwise the car's not going to fire up. Yeah, so that's all ready. So this is going to get mounted on the motor, and then obviously build that back up, get it back in the car, get all the wiring on, and then we'll see if it will actually fire up and spin the motor, which would be fantastic. So all right, I'm going to build this stack. Catch you later. Okay, we've got a stack built. It's looking a bit better now. We look like we're getting somewhere. So yeah, that control box, the cover's on, the wiring onto the motor is done, and that cover's back on, and so that's underneath. The motor wires kind of go through a gap, and there's a little housing, little plate underneath that you take off. Yeah, so that the box is bolted back on, air conditioning compressor's back on. There's a bracket on the back as well that we took off so that we could get the reduction gear off. So yeah, I've got to get that back in and mounted. There's a mammoth amount of wiring, and I did it slightly differently than the Renault procedure, because this is a CCS car. The official procedure is a lot of dismantling, whereas it kind of just trying to work this out. It looks like it's possible to kind of wiggle things out without doing the full amount of dismantling that the Renault procedure mentions. So, you know, instructions are just one person's version of a good idea. So yeah, we did it a little bit differently, but what that means is I actually took some stuff off, or took some wiring off, and then subsequently I did it a different way. So I've got like wiring off at both ends and things that I need to basically put back together, and just double check where things go before then we get that back in, and then we get that wiring back onto it. Sometimes I wonder why I do these jobs. Yeah, I know a few people who do this, and garages who do this kind of job and help them out with it and stuff, and nobody's done an R135. We're using used parts. We don't know if it's going to work. We don't know if there's going to be compatibility issues, but yeah, why do I take these things on? I don't know. Someone's got to do it, I suppose. Customer always tells me no one else will do it, but yeah. Cool. Okay, right. So yeah, that's the next plan. Basically, back on message, we're going to get that back in, get all the wiring on, we'll get the minimum on to get it fired up, and just see if it works, basically. And if it doesn't, then we'll have to work out what else to do. But yeah, no, we may have a few issues, but I'm kind of hoping that one way or another we'll get there. We always do. So yeah, it'll be all good. All right, cool. So I'm going to get that back in and get working on it, and catch you later. All right, cheers. Okay, sit rep. It's not looking good. We've got the stack all bolted in. We've got the wiring on. We've got the wiring on that you would. So for a ZE40, the minimum that we would be required to get it to start and run. And it's not happy. I've had major issues with the diagnostic tool, just trying to get it to communicate. Trying a couple of different tools. So yeah, it's not looking too good at the minute. So yeah, it's flashing up a couple of messages. Electromotor failure is what it had before, although it did start before, but it doesn't do now. Check electrics, not too much of an issue, but yeah, it doesn't start and it doesn't do anything currently. It seems like the high voltage system is not coming on. I did manage to get the diagnostic tool to connect, and there was a bucket load of errors basically from all different high voltage components. It's really difficult trying to work out whether they're the cause or whether they're just a symptom. Check vehicle. What does that mean? So yeah, at the minute it's not looking too good. I'm gonna have to recheck on my connections. I was kind of hoping it would fire up at this point. And because I've not done a ZE50 before, this is the first one, you sort of, basically the Renault instructions involve quite a lot of disassembly. So some of that I did in a slightly different way to sort of save time. So you sort of start disassembling something and then you think, oh, I don't think I need to do this. So then you do it a different way. So you've got like wires disconnected at both ends. So I don't know if I've missed something. Yeah, okay. Right, I need to recheck everything, but at the minute, that's not looking too good. Okay, the other issue is that my diagnostic machines, when they actually connect, neither of them can actually talk to the PEB, the motor controller, and that was the thing that was giving the faults. Because it's quite a newish car and these haven't been updated for a while. So, okay, yeah, so we could have more fault codes that I can't even see. Okay, right, I need to recheck on my wiring and we'll go from there. Right, catch you in a bit. Okay, there was a connector that wasn't quite seated properly, which I've just put on. We've got DC charging possible because of the charging socket not being there, but right, let's give this a go. Okay, right, so now it's in ready. Yeah, we got no headlights. There's literally no headlights. So if we put it in drive, that is in drive. Oh, the motor's spinning. It's going a bit mad because it's got nothing to slow it down, but it's actually spinning. Apply brake, yeah, that'll be all right. It's actually turning. Look, the motor is spinning. Okay, that's what it was. Wowzers, okay. Let's just make sure it's happy in here. I think I've switched it off, but no, it's still in ready mode. I think we've got it. I think we've actually done it. Okay, I need to do a bit more testing and a lot more reassembly, but I think this car is fixed. It would have, if there was an immobiliser issue, it wouldn't have gone to ready, so we've obviously got around that, and it obviously works. Let's just switch that off. Okay, wowzers. I'm just going to check that starts again. Sorry for the bad camera work. I'm just going to try and start the car again. Yeah, it goes to ready. Crumbs. Okay, it seems like we've fixed it. Right. Okay, I need to do some more testing, but right, it looks like it's possible. So this is an R135, a ZE50, and we have swapped the control box. Okay, cool. I'm very relieved. We seem to have lots of warnings up here, which we need to look at, but it works, which is fantastic. Check vehicle, I don't know what that means. Got some warnings up there. I'm not too worried though, because like half the front of the car is disassembled. I am very relieved. Right, fantastic. It works. It is alive. Hoorah. Catch you later. Okay, so next steps on the Zoe. So obviously we got this to start and spin the motor, which is really good. So we know that box works. The immobiliser coding is happy. It's happy with the motor, and we've kind of put enough things back in the right place for it to do that. So what do we need to do next? So really important that we test that everything works before we put everything back together, and then obviously otherwise we might have to take it all apart again if something doesn't work. One of the biggest things on the Zoes is charging, because the rectifier and the charging input filter
it does like voltage measurements and stuff like that, is only accessible if you have an issue with them. It's sort of the same thing. You have to take the whole stack out. So this is the point that we need to now get the minimum back on to test charging and kind of anything else that we can think of, so that when we put it back together, we don't then have an issue. And this is from bitter experience of putting a car back together, which then doesn't charge, which is really depressing. In that case, the car had a motor fault, but basically we've been sat around so long, moisture had got in a load of components, and it then caused a short on high voltage system and shorted the rectifier, and that's inside that box, the charging rectifier. So it had to all come out again, which is, yeah, doing an 8 to 10 hour job is a slog, and doing it twice is just depressing, frankly. So we don't want to be doing that. So yeah, so getting the charging socket on, extra fun and games that it's CCS. So if it's just the type 2 like the earlier Zoes or non-CCS, then it's just got this top part, and then so you just have this top orange cable, and that's the AC going on. That's obviously not pushed all the way on, but AC on to the stack to get measured and rectified and stuff. But this is CCS, so we've got the bottom pins, and then that CCS one wiggles round and goes over and down to the CCS contactor box. So little bit of extra. That is the first time I've done one of these with CCS, and wiggling that down is a lot of fun and games. Getting that in the right position. It's really tight down there. You can kind of see that it was never really designed to have all that stuff, and then they've kind of just made it fit in there, which is fun. So yeah, and then obviously once we've checked everything, then we can crack on with the rebuild. So in terms of rebuild, this car's obviously got the extra added fun that it's had a bump at the front and been repaired really badly. So like for example, this bracket that's supporting the charging socket, if you if you compare these two, so probably the easiest thing to do is see where this to open the bonnet, where that's mounted, there's nothing above that. So that's this part here. So this whole section was missing, that bit there, and then this part with the 3 bolt holes, or 3 clips, 2 bolt holes, that was still on the slam panel. So that whole section was missing, so I had to get one of them from Renault, which wasn't particularly expensive, so that's fine. But yeah, just obviously adding on top of the 10-hour job is actually things, because they're broken on this car, we're not just putting them back on again. So yeah, other bits, that arch liner from the driver's side, front half of the arch liner was totally missing, so we got a new one of them. This you've seen this in an earlier video, this is the slam panel, so that was in a really poor condition. This bit is just like totally broken. It's been like bodged back together, and the guy said he couldn't get hold of one, which is a bit weird because they're available at Renault, but I suspect it was probably just a cost decision. But I'm not putting that back together. I'm not happy with that. I'll make it very clear to customers that if I'm going to fix a car, I'm going to do it properly, and if they want it bodged back together, they can take it somewhere else, basically, and that's it. I'm only doing it if I can do it properly. But yeah, so where I take things apart, I put the bolts back in, but obviously now that's not the part that's going back on the car. So like over here, we've got a horn, we've got the pedestrian sounder, so all that needs transferring over. So like literally got to take those bolts up and move everything over. These are the sort of like rubber things that the bonnet sits on when it closes, and one of those was broken. It might be possible to glue it back together, but I was ordering parts. I ordered one because it wasn't very expensive, but then I worked out that they're different. So if you, yeah, I'll just move that over. You see those two, this one's kind of a bit more smaller on the top, cone shaped, and that one's a bit flatter. So yeah, I've ordered one, but it might not be that one, it might be that one. But anyway, I should be able to repair that, but I can always pop that in later. I need to order some other Renault parts anyway for motors, so that's fine. So we've got to do all that. This is broken as well on the bumper, so that's going to be real fun and games, because we've got to pop all these clips that clip together that aren't intended to really come apart. We've got to pop them all apart separately, and it's all obviously adding on top of the 10-hour job. Headlights, so in the earlier video, the headlight was basically screwed in because all the clips were broken. These headlights are quite expensive, so what I did, well, this is actually a new one. What I did first is I ordered a repair kit, which is really hard to get hold of, but managed to get one. It's an original Renault part, but parts desks will tell you you can't order it.
which is a bit weird. But I managed to get it from a European parts place. So I was going to use these to repair the other headlight, but then I saw that one on eBay, which is a lot better. It actually looked perfect, but when it arrived, like that clip's broken, so there should be a bit like that sticking out of there, so it should kind of be like that. But I've got this repair kit. I've actually got that bit as well, so I may be able to just repair that because it's pretty good. Or you can see those kind of screw in there, which is quite cool. So this headlight is actually designed to have a repair kit fitted, and this is an original Renault part, which is kind of cool. So slightly annoyingly, I bought these, which were expensive, and then I bought a headlight. But that's kind of the way it goes, basically. And like, yeah, so like that's that one. And it comes with little like self-tapping screws to like screw into those, yeah, into there. So it's obviously designed to have it on, designed to be repairable. There you go. Top marks, Renault, something that's actually designed to be repaired. Yeah, so, and on the other headlight, even using that repair kit, there was like whole sections were just broken off, and then it had holes in it because they drilled it to put blooming wood screws in it. So we had to get another headlight, really, so that's quite cool. And then the other thing that's fun and games is the radiator pack. So I thought this had just popped off, and I thought, okay, we're going to pop this back on. But now it's out, it's actually slightly banana shaped, so it's been pushed in, so it's kind of curved like that, and that's why that won't sit on. So I'm gonna have to do something with that. It does look kind of bent. Actually, it looks like that corner's been pushed back, actually, doesn't it? It was holding the gas and everything, so it wasn't leaking. So the radiator packs are quite expensive, basically, especially because this is a later car, because it's a ZE50. But I'm going to basically take all that apart, and it might get fettled. There's a you might have seen, there's a video about how they did the kind of finishing on the Lada cars. I think they were in the like East German Lada factory. And they kind of like use their knees and their boots and wooden wedges and stuff to like line up the doors and the bonnet and stuff. So that might get fettled like an 80s Lada, I think. Just see what we can do with it. It obviously doesn't have to be perfect, it has to be functional, but it has to be safe as well. It's got a couple of bits broken on it, but I think that can be repaired in a sort of sensible fashion, not like that, which is just unsafe. So yeah, I mean, it's been fully welded here as well. It was obviously totally cracked here. Oh yeah, so cracked up here and along here and up there, and it's had some of these like heat plastic things, a load of gunge, and they've just put gunge on the top and not worried about the bottom. I mean, it's appalling, frankly. So yeah, things like that bonnet catch you've got to transfer over. So that's the plan, basically. Those bits and bobs, that's got to add to the time, obviously, but it's going to get done. It's going to get done properly. And yeah, so next step, I'm going to make sure it charges, work out how that cable goes down. All the cable routing is obviously different because earlier cars don't have that, but I've got the Renault sort of diagrams and stuff, so we can have a look at that. Yeah, and just get that bit swapped over, and then just crack on like normal, but obviously having to work on each part as we go. So yeah, that's the update, and I'm going to crack on, and I'll show you the progress as I get there. Obviously that wiring, it all, when you put the radiator pack on, that wiring kind of runs across the front, and then that's all sort of like these, they're solenoids for the heat pump, and then similarly up there, and then there's the brake fluid sensor. It actually all wraps around across the front, across the radiator and onto there. But yeah, this one's a little bit different. I've quite enjoyed this because like that doesn't exist on an earlier Zoe on the engine wiring loom, and that's part of the charging, like for the CCS, a little addition there. I need to double check whether I've got this cable routing correct, because so like this loom, which the engine wiring loom is bolted on here, but it just seems a little bit loose there, and I need to just double check on another stack, just whether that's meant to be fixed in my head. On the earlier ones that was fixed in position, but yeah, I mean, if needed, I can just get like one of those cable tie bolt brackets and put it on there, just to make sure that that's held on, because you don't want that to vibrate and then rub. So yeah, so it's all that kind of stuff, really. Obviously things could be missing or damaged from the accident, but basically I'm going to put it back together properly, because that's the way to do it. So yeah, that's the update. Hope that's interesting, and yeah, any questions, let me know. All right, cool, cheers.
Okay, bumper time. So obviously the car works, but we need to get the bodywork kind of sorted so we can get it back together. So the bumpers are quite expensive. This one's been repaired. It's not ideal, and it needs further work really. So, well, for starters, this is all just totally loose down here, which is no good. But the main issue here is there's a crack along here, and then down here. So as the car's had an accident, it's pushed the middle of the bumper, and then that's just sort of bent that up like that, and it's cracked that along there. So the wonderful body shop who've had this have done obviously a terrible job, but that's not really acceptable. So this is going to get fiberglassed, and ideally that fiberglassed as well. We might be able to super glue that and then fiberglass it. Sometimes super glue is quite handy just to hold it in the correct position, and then you put fiberglass behind it and it makes it properly sort of rock hard. So just taking the number plate off, there's a couple of bolts here to undo. Just started drilling these out, then I'm going to take that off, and then we can repair these two bits. Have to be a little bit careful because this has been badly repaired. It was obviously cracked, and then they've done like a plastic weld behind where you melt sort of hot bits of metal into the plastic, and then they've kind of rubbed it down, and just from moving it around it's just kind of really weak basically. And you know this bumper repair is terrible because there's overspray all over it. So we're going to do the best we can. To be honest, when ZE50s are a little bit more common over the next couple of years and bumpers get cheaper, the car will get a new bumper, but this one will do. It'll be okay. Customers not worried really about odd little sort of chips and cracks. It's just fundamentally as long as it's safe and secure basically, and that's not safe and secure. I mean, this bit's not secured in at all. It's terrible. So yeah, I'm going to crack on with that, take these bits apart, and then see what we can do. All right, cheers. Okay, so slight change of plan. Basically, I am sort of cable tie stitching it and super gluing it. And there's a good reason for that. It looks quite neat. It's actually very rigid. And the reason is because of the way this bumper's been repaired. If we look round here, so like where it's cracking here, if we have a look behind, can you kind of see? Not very easily, because it's a bit dark, but basically it's been sort of plastic welded with the heated metal things, and then sprayed and everything, and it's just not very strong. And I'm a little bit concerned every time I move it around, it kind of wiggles and cracks a bit more. So I kind of want to move this bumper the minimum, and to fiberglass that it would need to be on its front, and then the sort of weight of it, you know, is pushing it like that. So yeah, just to try not to damage it basically. So you can see I've done the same here. So that's being super glued. I can't really cable tie that bit, but I'm hoping super glue, and I'll try and get some super glue on the back, just kind of in that line, and that should be sufficient. The little cable tie is quite good because you can super glue between, and then the super glue is in that crack but also behind there as well. So you sort of put a little bit of super glue on it, cable tie, and then sort of give it some more kind of thing, and it makes it nice and strong. And I've done it in a couple of stages. So I did this bit, got that lined up, put the bumper on a couple of chairs as well as the bin to kind of get the angle right, so they sit nicely, and then clamped this bit and glued that bit and clamped that bit and glued that bit, and then I've kind of walked my way along with the clamps because I've only got 3 clamps. And kind of similarly with this bit, you do one bit and the next bit. So I sort of clamped that bit while I glued it because it was like that, and then I'm going to clamp that once that bit's dry or set. I'm going to clamp that and glue that. So that's cool. I am quite worried about this next bit. So this part, let's take this over here. So right, sorry, I'm standing in a ditch. Right, so you can see this. I need to adjust this so you can see it properly. Right. So you can see the size of this. You can see those 2 dots are there. So there should be this whole section on the bumper which secures it onto the slam panel, which is just not there. It's broken off where that sort of fold is. So basically I've got to pop all of this out, and I'm quite worried that this is going to crack where it's been previously repaired. But we don't have a lot of choice. I'm going to have to put the bumper down kind of the right way up, and just be really careful with it. I think I've got a couple of old pillows somewhere, and I might just grab them just to kind of, yeah, try and keep it from wiggling around too much. But I've also got to pop all this apart. So around the charging socket, you can see all those clips where that's all clipped in. It's kind of not designed to come out. So I'm going to have to kind of lever those, and then the bumper's going to get weaker. But yeah, it's got to be done basically, because that it doesn't secure on properly. It was literally cable tied on the bumper at the top of that hole, and there's like a crack there, and there's just no option. What I might do, I can cut the bottom of this, can't I? Because we don't want this piece. So that bit around the charge port that's in there could potentially just be cut very gently. But we'll see. The show must go on. Yeah, it's got to be done. So yeah, we'll see what we can do. And I'll check back in with you when I've got a bit further. All right, cheers. Okay, hoorah. We've done it, my word. What a faff. So this is the part that's broken. If we just put those sort of next to each other, you can kind of see what's going on there. So that whole section there is just totally missing, which is no good. The bumper was held in with a cable tie at the top, so that's obviously not acceptable. But it's all kind of integral basically. So this is the trim around the bigger bit around the charging socket, and then the trim below that, and then the front of the charging socket. So yeah, you've actually got to disconnect that from the rest of the charging flap mechanism, which is there, and then that's then small enough to fit back through the hole, this hole. So then you can take that part off, and then you've got to basically get that whole section off, and then that bit, that sort of black trim, pops off of that bit. So this one isn't perfect, but I've got basically like some bumper black, and that is absolutely acceptable. Little scratch there, but that's all structurally fine. A little bit of visual, but that's absolutely fine. Yeah, so you can sort of see that crack hasn't got any bigger, fortunately. That's like a reinforcing thing. You just sort of pull out the back. If we go around the back, so where that crack is, yeah, you can see just there that it's had a plastic or sort of a metal, heated metal staple thing pushed into the plastic. I think there's another little area, but yeah, it's generally not too bad. Just small things. Oh, there it is. So yeah, it's been sort of put back together. Obviously it was just a little bit cracked, and then they've kind of done the plastic. There's like a heated element thing you can get. It's a heated staple goes through. But anyway, while I'm here, this has got to be fixed as well. So I think these are just spade connects in here when I looked before, so I need to do that while I'm here as well. But we are getting there, so I can reassemble this. It all needs a good clean. But yeah, hoorah. I don't really like doing bodywork. It's not my thing. Painting I've tried to do, and I will not do painting. Trim is a faff, but I sort of get there in the end. So yeah, this is gonna get there. What a mission. Right, I'll crack on. Cheers. Hey, check this out. Job done. We've got a whole bumper. Fantastic. Actually, not too bad how it comes apart. So we've not made that little crack any bigger. We've not opened anything else up. This is just a little bit grubby because I kind of washed in that channel because it was really filthy. Yeah, so that's fantastic. So we now have the actual flap that goes onto the slam panel and bolts down, rather than just cable ties holding the front bumper on, which is much of an improvement. So yeah, I'm going to put a little bit of bumper black, particularly just in there, just to make that look a little bit better. But yeah, winner. So I suspect at some point this car will just have a new front bumper. This one's not bad, but just to, you know, if they want to tidy it up in the future. But yeah, it's all good. There is still, so if you watch the earlier videos, there's a trim missing in there, and that basically I can't get hold of. It's just like a flat sort of bit of trim that covers those gaps. It's not a big issue. So yeah, that's just going to stay like that for now. Basically, that is functional, safe. It looks a lot better when you sort of open the bonnet. It will do, because it'll actually have the proper things in place. So the new slam panel and the new flap there that's actually meant to be there. Yeah, but a little bit of a faff, but that actually can all come apart. Yeah, if you've got some sort of basic tools, that is all possible. So yeah, cool, good stuff. That is ready to go back on. All right, catch you later. Update really. So yeah, things are a lot different on these ZE50s, especially with CCS, because you've got that long CCS cable that goes over the stack. Normally with a non-CCS car, or especially with an early Zoe, you just clip the AC charging cable on there, and then one of the plugs down here on the ZE22 and ZE50 is for the comms, like the PP and CP from the charge port. You just clip them on, and so you would leave this to a much later stage, but with this being CCS, it's got this additional CCS cable that runs over there, so you basically got to do that early. You can do it later, but I think it's going to be easier that way, but we'll see. It's just first time doing one of these. And I've just put this area around the 12-volt battery back together. This is totally different on the ZE50. So ZE22 and ZE40, the battery is the other way round. That's the main ECU there. So yeah, on the earlier cars that's behind, and you wouldn't touch it, kind of like on the bulkhead behind there. But this doesn't exist, because that's the CCS sort of control box. Yeah, so this configuration is all totally different. So there's a cable that runs along here, so it's a little bit dark in there. So that I had underneath because I didn't realise it had to go back in that tray, and then this got to be clipped back on. Yeah, this bracket, that took me quite a while to work out the orientation of that. Gotta love this earth cable. So this is sort of the main earth. I'm just going to put it on there because I don't want the car to actually fire up. But it's just bolted onto the body, just in there where it's blurry. There, and then it comes forward there, and it goes round and back to over there. Why it doesn't just go like across there, I don't know. But it is clipped in there and there, and it will be clipped in there. There we go. It is clipped in there and there. Yeah, it just seems a little bit unnecessary, but maybe there's a sort of minimum or sort of maximum distance that you kind of have a cable that not being clipped in, and there's no brackets there. I don't know, but then you could have quite easily put a little return on here and then clipped it in behind there, and it could have just come to there. I don't know. Maybe it makes it easier when you're working on the car, to be fair, to unclip that and secure that somewhere. So I don't know really. I don't design cars, I just fix them. So, but it's interesting. So yeah, so all of these brackets and all that wiring is all totally different on the ZE50, and then these wires from the ECU. So it took a little bit of fun and games to work these out, but one's clipped in at the front, and then there's one behind. Oh yeah, just clipped in there. The sort of next one down where there's the 3 plugs. One of them comes out the front, one's clipped in there, and then another one sort of just goes straight down. Yeah, so just all this fun and games really, working everything out, and you put it on, and then you sort of get it together, and then you're like, oh, why won't that clip in under here? And then you realise, oh, that's supposed to be in that tray, and then you take it out, and then sort of this cable was around the wrong side, and all this, it's just been sort of rotated, and this is sticking out the wrong side or whatever. It's just all those kind of all those kind of things really, and all this stuff's got to go back on just like that. But yeah, this is all what I need 2 hands for that. It's all the kind of thing I'm doing at the moment. This CCS is not all fixed in, so yeah, I'm doing that one. One thing I found that's quite useful if you're doing a complex car job, bit like this, so you're sort of, this is a 5-hour, stripped down 5-hour rebuild kind of job. Let's focus that. Take a few pictures is good, but if you take a video on your phone, so just sort of scan across the engine bay or across the top and then down and then back, you can go at sort of different angles, like this. And if there's something you're interested in, obviously the video is just like taking a million pictures, isn't it? So you can kind of pause it at a certain place, zoom in, if there's a particular thing, because you can kind of guarantee that there's not going to be a picture of the thing you want. The bit that you can't remember how these cables go together, or how this bracket goes together, whatever. Or that cable back there, and you might not be able to see it from your one picture. Whereas if you've got a video, you can sort of move it around, go up and down, move around like this, and then you can kind of watch the video and just wait for it to get to that section and pause it. And I found that's really useful. And you can do that at each stage, and then you've just got like 4 or 5 videos on your phone. And when you're done, you just delete them, rather than having like 100 pictures, and it sort of takes ages to take them. So yeah, I found that's useful. So hopefully that is useful. But yeah, so normally on a ZE2, ZE22 or ZE40, you wouldn't have a chair sitting here with a charge port on. I think Renault would put that on a bit later, but I want to make sure that all this wiring's correct. So yeah, and just kind of getting used to working on these ZE50s really. But yeah, it's going back together. Yeah, so it's pretty happy, and yeah, I'm just cracking on really. So this is the loom that sort of from the car, that snake. So all those connectors on there, and then all these connectors and all those connectors. So once the radiator pack goes on, that goes across the front of the radiator, kind of clips on here, like there kind of thing. And then it sort of connects to like that sensor there, and then to the air conditioning valves there, and sensors and onto the brake fluid reservoir. So that's the one that wraps across the front. Unfortunately, when you kind of put it into place, it's fairly obvious where they clip onto, partly because some of it's colour coded like that and the plugs are colour coded, but also it kind of, they're the ones that they reach, kind of thing, if that makes sense. So it's not as bad as it looks, to be fair. But yeah, it's all fun and games, isn't it? So we are getting there. It's going to take quite a bit more time, and I'm kind of taking lots of pictures, and I've been doing quite a few tests as well along the way, just to learn more about the architecture of these vehicles. And I've been doing basically tests for Hevra, for the Hevra support team, who I do some work for. And yeah, so there are certain things they wanted to know, and you don't always get the opportunity. If it's a customer's car, they want it to be fixed. And also, obviously, these are all under warranty. So this is kind of like information that we can learn now and make use of in the future to fix other cars from next year when they come out of warranty. So still plenty to do on this car. I haven't done all the transferring of all the bits like on the slam panel. That is all not yet done. This wing still needs a bit of repair because there should be a bolt here, but it wouldn't be bolting into anything. So I need to sort of probably put some decent sealant. I've got some CT1 really good sealant that will hold that together, and probably put a bracket. What I might do is take that bolt out and put a plate all the way across and bolt that through, so it's kind of pushing down on it, so it's holding that bit down, and get it sort of mocked up, and then take it off, squirt a load of sealant, and then clamp it down and something like that. But it's okay, there's a little crack there, but you know, it's sort of good enough. It's good enough. The main thing is it's going to be working and it's going to be safe. It's you know, from the accident, all the terrible repairs are going to be sorted. So we are getting there, and I'll just keep cracking on and keep you updated. All right, cheers. Okay, so let's get this car finished. So what have we got left to do? So we've got to do, I've got to put one drive shaft in, I haven't got the other one in. So drive shaft, there's the subframe, which is this part there, that fits under here, and then there's brackets at the sides. There's the radiator pack, which is still bent and I haven't unbent yet. It's also got these rubber little plugs, so this is part of the plastic there in the middle. Is part of the plastic of the actual sort of radiator pack frame, and then this rubber grommet goes around it, and then it sits into the subframe in these little holes, and from the impact these are broken off, so we've got to do something to fit those back on, and to kind of bend that back into shape and get that cover back on. So bit of work on the radiator pack just to add to the list. So then when we've got radiators on, so then there's the crash bar that goes across to where those three bolts are. On those three bolts there's a big crash bar there, and when that and the radiator pack are on, you can then get that wiring loom that's kind of hanging there and feed that back through, and then get that all clipped back into place. Obviously when that's back on, then you can do your AC pipes, radiator pipes, there's a water pump pipe, and kind of get everything plumbed up, get some coolant in it, which will be nice. And then at that point, we can then put the headlights back in. Arch liners, there's a two front arch liners, one there, that one's a new one. Yeah, and then at that point, oh, I didn't mention the slam panel actually. Slam panel, so everything's been transferred over to the new slam panel. One of those was broken, so that's been fixed. Yeah, and all that wiring snake fits onto the horn and the pedestrian sounder that are there. Yeah, and then I think, oh, charge port, that'll get bolted back into place. I think from memory, I said headlights, didn't I? That it will then be bumper time. So we are kind of getting there, probably about, I don't know, you would normally be about 3 hours this bit, maybe. Depends if there's two of you, maybe 2 hours. We're going to add on a bit of time for the radiator pack, because that's going to be some faffing around. But yeah, other than that, little bits and bobs. Oh, scuttle, and just see the brake fluid reservoir hanging there. So yeah, scuttle gets all refitted, which is all over there, and then that brake fluid reservoir can bolt onto the scuttle. I think that'll be about it. Obviously get the wheels on, under trays is another thing. Then that might be about it. Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, I'm just going to double check the procedure because I usually do it this well. I don't usually for a ZE22 or ZE40, to be honest. I just do it from memory. But because this is a ZE50, I'm just going to double check if there's any differences. But I don't think there is, other than the fact that charge port's already connected, because I've sort of been checking the CCS wiring and taking my time with that, having maximum sort of space to do that, rather than doing that when Renault say, which is like pretty much at the end, which is going to be a little bit more difficult, just because it's the first time doing it. So I'm going to crack on and yeah, let's get it finished. All right, cool. Okay, so here's a point of debate. What do you put copper grease on? How much do you put on? These bolts can get quite rusted because they're quite exposed, so I put a little wipe on there. So the splines, so this is the drive shaft, so the kind of back half of this, that's actually the splined bit in there, I put a little bit in there because that can get quite stiff. But like the hub nut on the Zoe, it doesn't have a split pin, it's just held in by the fact it's done up so tight. It's like 260 foot-pound or whatever. I'll look it up obviously before I finish this, but it's loads and loads and loads of torque. But if I put a load of copper grease on there, that's going to kind of help it come off. So obviously you wouldn't put loads on, but do you put a little bit on? Do you put none on? Yeah, it's a big nut, but you don't want to have a problem getting it off. Obviously that needs cleaning. So yeah, it's just interesting really. What do you put on? How much do you put on? There's a guy, Danny, I know at a garage in Duxford, he loves a bit of copper grease. Well, a bit of an in-joke because he got a car that had so much copper grease on the wheel bolts. It was a Zoe that the nuts were coming loose. It was literally like covered in copper grease, so that's obviously too much. But yeah, do you just put a little wipe on like me? Do you put any on here? Yeah, let me know. All right, cheers. Okay, well, it's lovely and windy and rainy, which is great if you've got a plastic workshop. But yeah, hopefully I won't blow away. So, faffing around with the radiator pack. So this was quite badly cracked. So sort of starting at the front, this radiator duct was cracked, but that's just been super glued back together. It's sort of in no way structural, it's just literally an air guide. So that's just sort of super glued back together. The rest of it's okay, yeah, just looking it over. So that's done. So then the radiators, so we're at the back here. So these were bent, you can kind of see a little dent there, and it's still slightly banana shaped, but it was really bad. And basically that meant that this corner had cracked off because it had just been pushed. So that's been cable tie stitched and super glued. I don't think it's going to be visible, so that should be fine. I haven't got any black cable ties, so and I haven't got time to go and get any, so that's what it is. So then the only other bit is down here. There's meant to be a little bracket here, or a little extra plastic bit that sort of fits behind there, but yeah, that's cracked off. But I'm probably just going to cable tie these two together on the basis that literally it just holds it on, and that is kind of about done for the radiator pack. We are kind of getting there. There's only one more repair on the car, accident related, once I get this back together. And normally you wouldn't take this apart at all, you just plonk that straight on top of there and carry on. You can see we've got the subframe on, so both drive shafts are in, and gear oil put in, so then we can see if it leaks at all just while we're doing the rest. But yeah, you'd normally just plonk that on and carry on, but obviously we've been sort of like 40 minutes or whatever faffing around with this, disassembling all of this, because I took that black part off then to sort of bend the radiators back into shape. So yeah, then the only other thing is on the bottom, these are the sort of feet that are meant to be on the bottom of the radiator, and then they sit in here, and that just holds the radiator in place, and they're broken off, so we need to work out what we can do with that. I don't know if there's enough plastic that we can super glue it and then put a screw through the middle of it. We'll see. Then there is one other little bit. So in the top of the radiator, so it's got these gaps, and when you put the slam panel on, these pegs sit in those gaps and hold it in, and this peg is broken. So that part that, oh sorry, there we go, you can see now, that part that would be going into the radiator sort of below there is broken off, so we need to do a little bit of something with that one that fits in there. So yeah, a couple more bits on the radiator, but yeah, I'm cracking on with the rebuild and it's going all right. So then the only other bit of accident related damage, if I can just get over here, is this. Debating what to do with this. I think for now this might just get a bolt with a big fat washer or two and some sealant and that'll be fine. And it's accessible anyway, but I just need to get this car back together basically. Time is just getting on. We've obviously spent quite a long time on it because it's needed it really, but at some point we've got to finish it. So that's going to get suitably done. It's okay. It's pretty. Yeah, it's pretty good. Structurally okay. That's got stuff behind it. Yeah, it's just, it should be held on there, but it's only a single like kind of plastic bolt that's missing. So yeah, we are getting there, cracking on. It's all good fun, isn't it? The weather's not too good, but yeah, hopefully we won't blow away. Yeah, wish me luck. All right, cool, catch you in a bit. Cheers. Okay, so I got the radiator the other way up, and it's got these pins and then rubber boots, and then they sit in those holes there, one there, one over there, and these pins are broken off. So I've put some super glue on it, but it's in no way gonna hold with the super glue. But fortunately, this bit is just like a bracket. It's not part of the cooling duct, so the cooling is there, and then it goes inwards. So like kind of this section is just mounting bracket. So I'll put a little screw in it. It's just poking through, and I think that's acceptable use of a screw. I don't know. Tell me what you think. I mean, when this car arrived, it had screws in that headlight, massive screws straight into the like through the body of the headlight, through the corner of the like lens and the back of it, through and like into that scuttle panel. And I think that was pretty horrendous because they weren't actually doing a decent job. But here I've repaired the original bracket. Yes, I've used a screw, but to put it back to exactly how it was originally. Now some people might say, okay, that's been designed to break in a certain way, but is that going to cause a major issue? I can't see it. And the way this car was repaired when it came in was absolutely horrendous. So this is about 1,000,000 times better than it was originally. I mean, these weren't even connected at all. These were, the radiator was just there. It was all bent. This corner was all just cracked off. This bracket was broken. It's now got a cable tie in it. Yeah, it's got a cable tie. It's got super glue on it. But these are not sort of structural elements. You know, this is just plastic housing for a fan. Those ones are probably, you know, the most significant and need to be repaired, but they've been repaired to exactly the same dimensions as they originally were. So I don't know. What do you think? What do you think? Do you think that's acceptable? I guess really the summary is if you buy a written off car, you don't know how it's been repaired. Fortunately, when I sell this car, the new prospective buyers can watch the video diary, so they'll know exactly how it's been repaired. But yeah, I think that's perfectly acceptable, and I think it's done to a reasonable standard. Okay, it looked better if it had black cable ties, but yeah, it is completely functional. It is back to how it was originally, and if you had to use glue, super glue, some cable ties, and a couple of little screws just into the plastic, I think that's acceptable. I mean, adding a screw where there wasn't anything there originally and mounting something in a totally different way is one thing to how it was originally, but yeah, sort of rebuilding an element as it to the original dimensions, but with the addition of a screw, I think is acceptable. But yeah, let me know what you think. All right, let's crack on. Okay, so the radiator pack had another little secret for us. So now things are sort of going back in the correct geometry. So like this is lifted up now because this was broken, so this bit was pushed down. I was having a bit of trouble getting this to fit back in. It's kind of like not long enough, which is a bit weird. And then I'm thinking, well, should that, you know, that valve there be just, you know, behind there? But then I'm thinking, well, that bolt's on there. So I've sort of undone it and I'm trying to wiggle it on. I'm thinking this is all a bit weird. And there's a little indentation here, but in this system, there are points where there are like fixed constrictions, because you've got to have a low pressure and a high pressure side to this. But I'm thinking, is that right? So I just had a quick look. I'm on another Zoe outside that I bought off a customer because I didn't want to cover the repair cost basically. Well, actually just bought it. They got an estimate for repair, and so I just bought it off them. And if you look at that one, you can see those two. You can see that that's totally straight, and that's got a dent in it. And then I thought, this is a ZE50, and that's actually from a ZE22. So is this just because this is ZE50 and there's a modification? Just to be 100% sure, we're not going to put the wrong part on it. So basically, I put the radiator into the car. So if we put this where it will be, so I've just got to wiggle this in. Apologies, I'm doing it with one hand. So
this is here, and hopefully you can see this, yeah. So when this pushes back, there's that bolt hole that's got no bolt in it, and if you look at this, get it to focus, there you go, you can see it's sort of flat but then with a raised section, so that has impacted that bolt hole during the accident, and that's constricted that pipe. So yeah, another thing that's that I've got to swap, but yeah, that's no good, and that's not, you know, that's no good. That's really going to affect the operation of the sort of heat pump and air conditioning, because it's got a heat pump. So yeah, fortunately that's from a car I own, so that's another thing I've got to then find, obviously, to repair that car. So yeah, I'm going to put that on there, and then yeah, then we can carry on. And if we pop this one on here, you can kind of see straight away that that fits really easily, so just to prove that's different. So yeah, another bit of fun and games if you're working on a damaged car. All right, I would crack on now. Cheers. Okay, we are getting somewhere now. So yeah, I faffed around with that radiator, but that's all fitted, although I still had the issue that this peg was broken. So this holds the top of the radiator, there's one there, you can see, but basically where that little line in it is about there, that bottom bit broken off in the accident, but I didn't realise until I took it apart, and then the parts guy I normally use is away for Renault parts. So basically I've got a bolt and a washer, and it's got a kind of you know, internally threaded sort of thing there, and I've basically just remade this, but it's metal, but it does the job. So I think that's fine, it's held in place. So, and then the kind of wiring snake that runs along here and all the way along and goes to various places is all sort of refitted. So it's got coolant in it. I'm just working it up just so it's circulating the coolant, it's nice and bubbly, and bled that out. Yeah, so we are getting somewhere. So not much more to do. Obviously headlights, bumper arch liners, scuttle, wipers, wheels would be good. I just need to double check whether this should have an sort of an air guide. The earlier ones have a kind of offset, because you can see the rads over one side because the washer bottle's there. Yeah, they have a kind of oval plastic bit, and that bit's filled in and that bit's open just to kind of guide the air in from the bumper. But this car hasn't got one, but I don't know if that's because ZE50s don't, or because it was damaged and they didn't bother getting another one. So I need to double check that. But yeah, it's all a little bit different, so it's taken a bit longer, as well as obviously the faffing around with the radiator and stuff. There's all this CCS, so this is an additional bracket. This washer bottle is there instead of there. It actually still got this on a ZE40 or ZE22, the washer bottle sits there. So there's kind of still space for it, but I'm guessing the redesigned bumper or the redesigned headlights maybe meant there's not space. I don't know. It's all kind of interesting, really. Yeah, one thing that's a lot different. So things are in a different place than you expect. This is like the headlight connector. Normally they both, and that's the other headlight connector. Normally they both come up there. But yeah, it's still good. It's still good fun. It's not going to be the last ZE50 I work on, I strongly suspect. And we are really getting there. So yeah, next segment maybe the car back together. We'll see. All right, catch you later. Okay, check this out. We are getting somewhere. So we've got the bumper on, we've got the headlights on. Annoyingly, as I wiggled this on, it's pushed where they put a staple in because of a crack. It's pushed it through and cracked that a bit more, which is annoying, but there's not a lot you can do, really. You've got to get it on there. So there's it's a little bit different here than the earlier cars. There's kind of like a bracket behind here, behind the bumper, a slim one, and it fits in a slot in the headlight. So it's just a lot more fiddly, and it just wiggling it on even carefully, it's just cracked it. But that is what it is. So things left to do. There's obviously no scuttle and wipers. I haven't done the front arch liners yet. Another thing, so on these fog lights, or sort of daytime running lights, whatever they are, that one, it had the wiring ripped out of it, ripped out of the connector. So if we go around here, so I sort of added some wire onto the connector, you know, soldered into the connector and heat shrinked it, which is a bit blurry. There we go. And then I left it like that, so that at this point I could connect it up, see which way round it worked, and then solder it and heat shrink it, but it doesn't work either way around. It doesn't seem to have a supply. Probably not massively surprising because these wires have just been rattling around like forever, kind of thing. So yeah, I need to have a look at that. I suspect it's probably blown the fuse as they've been rattling around. But yeah, we are getting there. I just put it on charge and I've started it and checked the lights and things, so it's just those that fog light works and that one doesn't. Come on, phone. So yeah, we are really getting there. It's looking quite cool, really. I do need to double check about the air dam, actually. That's one thing. Yeah, the air sort of duct part behind, but yeah, it is getting there. All right, cool. Well, it's been a long road, but we are actually there. I did actually have a little niggle. I spent a long time working on this car yesterday and had a kind of motor issue that was affecting drivability. So in terms of moving it in and out the workshop, it wasn't really noticeable. So a little bit of brainstorming and a fresh head this morning, and I have fixed it. But yeah, I'll probably do another video on that because it was kind of interesting bit of motor theory. But yeah, it works. Fog light, yeah, got that sorted out. The car I just switched off the supply because it just detected that the bulb wasn't there, and that's been all soldered and heat shrinked and everything. Everything's back on, and yeah, now it is all good. So I'll probably do another video on sort of costs and stuff, whether it was kind of worth it, basically. So I actually bought this car from the guy who had it, because I was honest with him and said, look, I've never done an R135. I don't know anyone who has because they're all under warranty. And he was quite nervous. Obviously, you can't just stick a second-hand PEC on it. It's not going to work. So yeah, he was a bit nervous. And obviously with the sort of bits of bodywork and stuff, lots of faffing around required. I found another bit that wasn't on there, so like the air dam on the front, the kind of duct behind the grille that ducts the air into the radiator, big oval thing, that was missing as well. I'm waiting one bit of trim for the bumper that covers the sort of air intake bits just around the fog light. So where above and below those two lines, there's like a trim that fits behind there. One on the other side's missing, but yeah, just waiting for that to arrive. But this is done. It's all looking good. It needs a good test drive. But it is leaving the workshop. I'm going to put you in the phone holder immensely professionally, and it is out of here. So I'm putting this here, no expense spared, and this car is leaving the workshop. Let's do it. Well, this is an important part of testing. Obviously this Zoe has CCS, this is one of the main benefits. And we are pulling 40 kilowatts, it was pulling 45. The Zoe isn't the fastest charging, but yeah, 112 amps, that's quite cool. So we've been just over 13 minutes and 9 kilowatt hours. Quite cool. I only need to stay about another, well, a few minutes. I need about 50%. So yeah, it works. It works. This is actually the first time I have CCS charged this car. I had to go to an office which was 110 miles away, so 220 round trip. And this hasn't got any AC gas still, so it's using the electric sort of onboard PTC heater. So, and I have been using the heater because it's cold. So yeah, we're getting about 200 miles out of the battery. Everything works. I need to get it in the workshop at some point just to check everything, but yeah, absolutely everything works. And CCS charging, I didn't actually test CCS charging, I just rocked up here because it's got type 2 as well, because I've been here before with the old Zoe. But I'm at Cransley Park hub. They have got 20 CCS chargers and Acostas, and they've got type 2 and a couple of CCS up there, CCS and Chelmsford I think. Yeah, and a load of chargers, and there's a few people charging. There's a Range Rover getting in the way, but yeah, just wanted to say it's all good. It works. I was slightly apprehensive when I plugged it in, but it works. It's all good. Should we have a look inside the car? Charging stats. The one thing I don't like about the Zoe is you don't get many stats on the dash. So it will tell us an hour and 10 minutes to full, but we're not going to get to full. 47%, and that's 95 miles. So yeah, getting about 200 miles out of the battery, and I've had the heater on, and that's pretty good, I reckon. So yeah, more in the summer or if I didn't have the heater on, but yeah, 200 is pretty good. So just need a little top up to get home. And I've been driving in eco mode, because eco mode in this, it does about 65 miles an hour, which is kind of fine by me to cruise. I'm happy to cruise and charge a little bit less. So yeah, I probably actually good to go now. I've not been here that long, but yeah, this is cool. So I would our blue Zoe, the old one, would only charge at 22 kilowatts max, and obviously there's less chargers available, so I'm charging it basically twice the speed. So I am more than happy with this. I'm trying to get this sort of linked up with my phone. I was just doing that a minute ago, trying to get the app to work to do preconditioning and sort of check the charge level. But yeah, just to update that it is all good. What I'm going to do within a couple of days, I'll get the car back in the workshop, just check everything, and then I'll probably do like a run through of costs and things like that, just so that just for kind of information really, so people have got an idea of sort of what stuff's cost and yeah, how it's worked out. But yeah, just to update, things are all good, and now I'm just enjoying the CCS. So yeah, I did wonder whether I should have tested CCS before being on a long journey, but I had plenty of miles, and as I know that there's type 2 just up there because I've used it before, I thought, well, I'll just come here, I've got my cable, worst comes to worst. But yeah, it's all good. The rebuilt car is winning, and I've got enough to go. So I'm going to carry on with my journey. I'll catch you later. Cheers.
Okay, so I've got rid of that horrible car from yesterday's video and onto something a bit more interesting. So the ZE50 is back in the workshop just to basically check that everything is as it should be. So looking at coolant levels, so that looks good. So the reduction gear oil doesn't have a level, but basically it can only either drip out underneath from where the drain plug is or out the drive shaft holes. So yeah, just had a look at that, and that all looks good. No issues with the car, everything works as expected, which is fantastic. Just been doing a couple of little finish up jobs, so just checking like wheel tightness and stuff. And then I finally got, let's go down here, there's an air duct. It's kind of like, you can't really see it, but there's two holes, one there and one there, and there's kind of like an air duct like that, and so there's a little gap that way, and then it actually vents out just in the arch liner, which is kind of weird, but I guess this design's for efficiency as well as to look good, I guess. And I actually couldn't find that one, and then I managed to find it on eBay, and oddly it actually vents out through a slot here, and this front arch liner was missing. So I fitted one from an earlier car, basically because it was vastly cheaper and the mounting points were still there, but obviously it didn't have this slot, so I've just literally just cut a tiny little slot out of the arch liner. I hope you can kind of see that. Oh, there you go, you can see how the air goes through. So yeah, I've just cut like a little 1/2-inch slot out of there, and it's still all well fixed on, because the mounting point just there. So yeah, I guess I've made that into a ZE50 one, so that's fine, that works. Yeah, but I thought it's probably best that slot is there, and it's only quite small, so it doesn't weaken it or anything, so that's fine. Yeah, so was it worth it? What did it cost? So I've got my official bit of paper. So we have got the car itself was £4,000. So that was broken right off. That's what I paid the guy. So basically, it's a guy who actually bought parts off before. He sort of buys an odd couple of cars from Co-Parts and does them up, and he had a Zoe that actually decided not to repair, so I bought some parts off him, sort of like motor stack, that kind of thing. And then he was obviously knew I kind of fixed Zoes, so he sort of chatted to me, and yeah, he sort of said about repairing the car and stuff, would I be interested in stuff, and I said I've never done a ZE50 before, or 135, because they're all under warranty. So the discussion sort of went from there, and he said, oh, I don't want to take the risk, do you want the car? So we agreed £4,000, recovery 220 quid, possibly could have negotiated a bit more, but yeah, that was 220. So PEC, so that's that big box that wraps around the motor there. So that actually cost me nothing, depending on how you look at it, because I bought and sold a few Zoe motors. So like where garages have asked me, have you got a Zoe motor? I've sort of looked around and got one. Not particularly really made money out of it, to be honest, because of the blooming pallet transport costs and all that faffing around. And it took time and stuff. However, ended up with the PEC, because one of the motors I bought, I kind of paid for a motor, but actually the whole like stack turned up. So I had that, so that cost me nothing. But in terms of if you'd have to budget to buy one, I sort of, you know, I've put 500 to 1500 on my list, because I think that's what you'd have to budget. Albeit we didn't actually know what was wrong with this car. We had no idea. So it's kind of hard to budget costs in a project like that. But if you need that part, that's what you have to budget, if that makes sense. So bumper top part, so that's this section here. So that cost me £100. That came from Renault. Then what's next? We've got the plastic bracket around the charging socket. So kind of just under here. Oh, you can see it's actually that one there. Where the charging socket is. The charging socket is screwed into this plastic bracket there behind the bumper. Yeah, that was sort of pretty well broken. If you've watched my previous videos, you'll know that. Yeah, so that cost 40 quid. Slam panel 80 quid on eBay. So that's this part here that's got these plastic thingies in it. So that section that goes across there, that was like completely obliterated. That's a lot, cost more from Renault, and I don't think actually is available. But I managed to find one on eBay by luck. It's not massively different from the earlier one, it has to be said. There are extra brackets and things, so I'm not sure if you could use an earlier one. It wouldn't be ideal, certainly. Right, driver side front arch liner. Yeah, so we just talked about that. So that's that one over there. It was a pre one, so it didn't have that slot, and we cut it, and that was 30 quid. So the ZE50 front one I think was available, but it was a lot more expensive. That air duct, yeah, so that bit above and below the fog lights, which I've just put in, which was a pain in the backside. That was 15 quid. Couldn't find that when I did the car, but I subsequently found it, which was good. Brush kit, so I put some brushes on the motor, and that's excitation brushes. So it's not a brushed motor design, it's a 3-phase motor, but it doesn't have any magnets. So the rotor is wound and the stator is wound. So it's coils against coils instead of coils against magnets. So you gotta make both coils magnetic. So it's got brushes to do that. It's not essential to do that. I could have left the old ones on there, but this is my wife's car. I'm going to keep it a long time, and it kind of seems silly not to just put some new ones on, basically. So that was 100 quid, kind of optional, that's my choice. There was an air conditioning pipe that was behind the radiator. It was damaged because it had been pushed into the stack. I had trouble kind of trying to find that, but then actually bought a whole kit of AC pipes from a ZE, and which was 40 quid, so I've kind of said that cost 20 quid basically. It was one of them, a front bumper large oval guide, so behind that radiator, behind that grille, in front of the radiator, there's this big oval piece with a kind of slot out of it, and that just wasn't here on the car. So that was 40 quid. I said 10 quid coolant, 10 quid gear oil, 3/4 of a litre. I put in AC gas, cost me nothing because I have a very nice garage who I do quite a bit of stuff in sort of partnership with, who do my regases for free. I've attempted to pay him in the past, but he said no. But I kind of like pop up and look at diagnostic stuff with him, and we do various things, helping find parts and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there you go. If I had to pay for it, I could get it done for 100 quid. So that's sort of got a budget. Sundries, so I had to buy a few clips, bolts, cable ties, and super glue. So that's what the 10 quid's for. And it cost me 20 hours in labour. So what did it cost me? What does all that add up to? That all adds up to 4,675, if I've got my maths correctly. So if I was to go out and buy this car, so the ZE50, low mileage, so a write-off with CCS. So those cars are obviously not massively common, but there was one on eBay that had been repaired. It looked really nice in the picture, so I'm hoping it's better repaired than this. And that was a buy now of 7,000. So, which I think is probably quite fair. This, I mean, obviously, if you're buying a write-off, you don't know how well it's been repaired, so it's quite difficult to value. But I think if I was going to sell this, well, I think it's worth 6.5 grand. But I'm going to keep it, so that's fine. So, I've sort of made money, but then I've spent 20 hours on it. So you might say, oh, well, it's cost you money then, because, you know, those hours are worth more than that. Well, you could say that, but I don't usually invoice myself for things I enjoy doing. This is kind of my hobby as well as a job. This car was certainly done as a project so that I could have a new car. I wouldn't go out and spend 6.5 grand, but I could kind of spend that sort of 4.5, 4675, on the basis that the old blue Zoe is probably worth 3,000 when I get that all, you know, fully working and sell that. So, you know, it's cost me 1,670 quid and I've got a ZE50 with CCS, so I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, obviously if you paid a garage, you would have to pay that labour, so it's kind of gonna sting a bit in that way, and you don't know what you're gonna get, which is difficult. Maybe you can do some of it yourself, do all the bodywork yourself, get them to the mechanical. That could work, I suppose. Was it worth it? The question is, well, to me it was massively worth it, because I'd never done a ZE50 project before, because they're all under warranty. I've not done an R135, because that only came in with the ZE50s. I've not done a CCS Zoe before. And to learn about these is massively beneficial, because I work on the Zoes all the time. And obviously these are going to start coming through workshops, and people are going to ask me questions about them, and garages that I know and stuff, and people are going to want diagnostic info. And I've got a test case here. I've worked on one. I can talk to people about them. I can take on other ZE50 projects. So that the learning is massively beneficial to me. But obviously that has a different value to everyone. So I'm happy. I believe it was worth it. Whether you're in a position to do it yourself is obviously, you know, a lot different. It's not something I can recommend. And obviously we had no idea what was wrong with this car. So very difficult to value, but that's what it's cost. I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. Hopefully you've enjoyed the journey. Certainly has been a bit of a journey, and 20 hours later here we are. So yeah, it is all good, and I can move this one out the way again. Yeah, I'm just going to look through the live data next, because there's some quite interesting stuff in there, different to earlier Zoes, more information on certain things. So that's what I'm going to do next, and yeah, hope that's interesting. Any questions, let me know. All right, catch you later. Okay, so when I was finishing off the ZE50, I had a bit of an issue. It was quite a major issue actually, and I didn't really have time to go into the details at that point, because I needed to get that car finished, and then in getting it finished I kind of didn't really have anything to show, and it wasn't really very visible. But what did I do wrong, and what did that cause? And it's quite interesting, bit of motor theory. And yeah, something that caught me out, but I've learned something which is good. So the Zoe motor is interesting. Let's start around the other end. So if we go down here, so if we look into the motor, so this is the stator around the edge, so it's got a wound stator, and then if we can look in, you can see the rotor there, and that's wound as well. So the Zoe motor, this is a 5AQ motor, doesn't contain any magnets. Okay, this one's damaged since it's rusty, don't worry about it. So it's just coils against coils. Okay, so what it does is it magnetizes the rotor, and then it pulses the stator, and that pushes the rotor round. Okay, so on the rotor you've just got one well, it's going blurry. You've got one long coil that goes around the whole thing, and then it's just got two wires at the end. Okay, and those wires come out here. This is what the brushes are for. So on the end of the rotor, obviously that's turning round. I've just put these on just to kind of show you what's going on. So you've got your two points there. So they're connected to all of the coils around the rotor. It's got like kind of 4 blocks of coils, but it's one long wire around the rotor. Okay, and then you've got your red and black, and that actually goes through the hole there and pops out here. So they come out there like that. Okay, and they connect onto the motor controller. So I always assumed that the orientation of these two wires wasn't important, because this is just one coil that goes around the rotor, and it's just two ends of the same thing. So what difference is it going to make? But whenever I'm working on a customer's vehicle, even if you're not even if you think something doesn't matter, you do it the correct way anyway. But because this was going to be our vehicle, I didn't follow that principle. Hence, I've never done this before, and I've worked on a lot of Zoes. So normally the black is on the outside, but when I had them together, I had the red on the outside, but I thought it was two ends of the same thing. There's a little bit of a clue here, because there's obviously a reason these are red and black. There is also another clue, which hopefully I can show you this. So this is just a stack I'm working on at the moment,
if we go under where these wires are actually connected, hoping you can see in here, so you can see the red and black, and I'm hoping you can see just in here, that's a little bit blurry, isn't it? If I get that to focus, yeah, so you can see there's a negative there next to the black one. There's also a positive somewhere on the red one, but I think it's in the shadow there. But yeah, so you can see that one's marked negative, that black one. Okay, so we got a red and a black, and where they go is marked negative and positive. Oh, it's in the shadow. There's the, where are we? It's just in, there we are, see the plus. So I had these the other way around on the ZE50 when I put it together. Okay, so those wires magnetize the rotor. Okay, so and we know that the rotor gets magnetized, and then these are the stator wires. Okay, and then the motor controller pulses these wires and it pushes the rotor round. Okay, so what happened with the ZE50 basically is when I put it back down on the ground and went to back it out the workshop, it actually went forwards. It kind of like, not smoothly forward, but I was obviously backing out gently, but it just jumped forward a little bit, and I thought it's a bit weird. And now, bearing in mind, I put this car back together and I got the motor to spin, and you know, obviously it's not difficult to tell exactly how it's spinning, but it's kind of spinning, and it's the first ZE50 I'd ever done. So yeah, I thought that was a bit weird, and bearing in mind I've been doing a lot of work on the ZE50, so yeah, you're never quite sure if you're going to have an issue. And then I thought, that's a bit weird, did that go the wrong way? So I kind of confirmed that the car was literally going the opposite way to the way you'd want to go, when really jerky, and after a bit of jerking around it would go motor failure and stop working, basically. And motor failure is what it came in with. So I was pretty concerned about this point, at this point, because we're basically at the end of a 20-hour project and the car's not working properly. And this is the first one I've ever done. I'm kind of thinking, okay, this has just been a failure. So I sort of went away and had a little think about this, and I sort of said quite a few naughty words. And then when I sat down, I thought, hang on a minute, I think I know what's wrong with it. So if you imagine, let's imagine this was kind of a more standard motor, which has got magnets, and then it's got coils, and the coils are powered so that they push or pull on the magnets, because magnets obviously have a north and a south, everybody knows that. If you turn a magnet round, instead of pushing, it's pulling. Okay, so it makes perfect sense that these wires, if they're the wrong way round, and this rotor is effectively magnetized the wrong way round, when the car fires these to push the rotor, it's not going to push it, it's going to pull it. So the car's literally going to go the wrong way. I mean, the car then knows that something's gone wrong because it's got a rotor position sensor, and it knows that something major has gone wrong, and then it shuts down, motor failure. So yeah, so on the ZE50, basically I could get to that cover panel where we've just been. It's right up against the subframe. You can just about get to it, and I basically crossed these wires over, and it works absolutely fine now. So yeah, I felt like a bit of a plum, and I didn't really have anything to show because it's all sort of back together. But yeah, I just thought I'd take that opportunity because I've got one in the right sort of state, and I thought that was quite interesting, really. And although it's a complete cock up, and I'm slightly embarrassed, but I've learnt a lot about it, and I always think, you know, that's kind of the whole idea. That's why I do this, because it's interesting and I want to learn. And yeah, and it makes perfect sense. And now we know these have got to be the right way around. But yeah, that makes sense. If you've turned your magnet round, it's like this, you know, like this motor's got a magnet and a coil, and you've turned the magnet round, and the motor controller expects it to be a certain configuration, so it's firing it the only way it knows how, and it's turning the opposite way. It's not getting the response it expects, and it can see what's happening via the rotor position sensor. So at that point, it kind of shuts down. So yeah, that was a real sort of heart in mouth moment there. But yeah, we're all learning. We're all learning, and that's why, to be honest, whenever I do a major job on a different variant that I've not done before, much prefer to own the vehicle. It's mine. I can take my time, investigate things. Well, I never know if it's going to work, so how would you estimate that if you've never done it before and the parts are different? So I wouldn't want to get into a situation where I've done a load of work on a customer's vehicle, sort of they're expecting it to be done for a price and it can't be, you know, I'm not really happy to do that. But yeah, so a little bit of confession time. Hope that's interesting. Yeah, if you've done sort of things with motors or you found that interesting, yeah, you got any thoughts, just drop them in the comments. But there you go. So I slightly messed that one up, but yeah, I did resolve it. So there you go, we're all learning. All right, catch you later.